There are several different things that you can use for making a leaf casting, but this is my favorite because it gives the smoothest best. It's a quickcrete vinyl patch. If you want to, you can add some cement coloring powder to give it more of a terracotta color. There are some other colors too besides that. Another thing that may help your leaf casting to be stronger is to add Quickcrete's concrete bonding adhesive. It pours out a little bit like Elmer's glue, but makes it stronger. When you go to do this, you will need a number of supplies. You'll need some saran wrap. You'll need some play sand. That's too heavy for me to put up here right now. But we'll be putting sand on the bottom, covering it with saran wrap, and then mixing up the vinyl concrete patch. To mix it up, it would be wise to be using rubber gloves, and when you're mixing the powder, to have a mask so you don't breathe in the dust. An old garden trowel is very helpful for trying to mix the concrete together, and a brush will be used at the very end to smooth the back side of it. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. The other thing that may be helpful is to have a number of different size plastic containers. This one is a pretty good one to actually mix the cement up in, but in order to measure your colorant or your other things, it's helpful to have some of these other quart containers with a variety of leaves to choose from. And the last thing is, I like this big Rubbermaid tub to actually mix the concrete form in if you're going to do more than just a few of the leaves. Otherwise, your 5-gallon bucket will work out fine.
There's a lot of good leaves that you can use. This is a water lily. It happens to be a tropical water lily. It's smooth on one side, this side, but you'll be flipping it over and putting concrete on the back where all of this nice veining is. You might notice some small holes in here, and so that you don't get concrete to come through those, you can cover them up with a piece of masking tape. On the smooth side, this will seal it so the cement doesn't leak through onto the other side, and once you put the concrete here, you'll never notice it. It repairs the holes. Moving this aside, there's another leaf, a hosta leaf, and it's an excellent type of leaf to use, not only because they're waxy and the concrete comes off quite easy, but because it has a great texture. Usually when you upend this over a pile of sand, there'll be a stem sticking out, like this. I want to show you how to cut off the stem. You cut it off as close to the leaf as possible, so that when you put it on the sand mound, if that opening bothers you, you can also use the masking tape on the back side of it to cover the hole and seal it over.
There's several different things that you can use on the back of the leaf to support it. If this is your leaf, and if this is the top side of the wet cement, if you want to, you can push some type of a PVC pipe in it, so that when the leaf is done, it'll keep it up at an angle, or in an angle this way, whichever you want. If you decide you want to hang it on the wall, you can use this, which is a 18 gauge wire. I've snipped off a couple edges and I've made a triangle bending it. Now, how that would go is you would push it into the cement, so the bottom part is in the cement, but the top is up, and then you can hang this from a hanger from a wall or something. A third idea that you could have is to actually upend part of a plant support into the wet cement. Pretend my hand is the wet cement. The one I have is a little bit long, but you can try to stabilize it by putting a styrofoam cup over it. I used a clear plastic cup just so you could see, and hopefully that will keep it stable as the cement hardens. Now I have my designer plastic gloves on, or vinyl gloves on, and this is play sand. I recommend this, not the more coarse sand. You want to get the finest sand possible because it'll help the leaf shape be a little bit smoother and easier to mold onto. I put a bunch of the sand in a 5-gallon bucket, and then I'll be adding water. You want the sand to be just a little bit moist so that when you form it into a dome to put your leaf on top of, that it'll hold its shape. So I'm just going to dump a bunch of water in here, and hopefully I didn't get too much. Oh, that'll be fine. This is the consistency your sand should be, so it will hold together, but you could still smooth it out a little bit. We've got 7 piles for 7 different leaves. I've kind of formed this wet sand, and I noticed as I was putting it on here, this actually takes a little dip in the middle, and you want to support that. So I tried to bring this sand up to the middle so that it keep that little extra point in it. The other thing you may notice is there's some ridges here. If you wanted to follow that, you can try to kind of push down in the sand to make, and then smooth it out a little bit to make some differences in it when you go to put it down. You don't have to follow the leaf exactly, but if I push down in here and maybe push down in there, it might make it a little bit more interesting than just having it completely round. What you do is feel with your hand to make sure most of the leaf is supported. For instance, I gotta take my gloves off. This is too hard with the gloves. I might want to push up on that a little bit to hold that little ruffle of the leaf, and perhaps up on this area too, and then just follow it around. Now this is a round lotus leaf. When you get to a hosta leaf, which I'll show in a little bit, you can do the similar type thing. Now it's nice not to get too much sand on this side of the leaf. It won't matter on that side, but on this side of the leaf, if you do have sand on it, you can use an old paintbrush just to brush it off before you put your concrete over it. Next we'll move over to the hosta leaf. And I've made a much deeper mound here. You can see some of the ridges left from the hosta, but I don't quite have it all finished because it's a little bit bigger than my mound of sand. So I'm going to bring some more in on this side and try to support all of that leaf. And kind of use your hand to press down, see where the leaf naturally wants to go. I think I need a little bit more lump in there. Now I'll be smoothing this out a bit afterwards. I'm just trying to get a rough idea. Well, that's good because now it comes all the way down to the point. Rough idea how this leaf wants to sit on the sand, and I better put a little bit more down there because that was not getting supported at all. What happens if you put the heavy concrete on top, you want that sand to be underneath the leaf to give it the shape. But I rather like that shape right now. I think that's pretty good. It's got a crease here, and I'm thinking that most of that is going to hold up. Now I've cut that stem off very flat. I'm going to brush any extra sand off, put the leaf aside, and then go back and just make sure that most of this sand looks reasonably smooth on the bottom. The next thing that you'll do is every one of these, cover them with a piece of saran wrap. Now what we've done is we've covered all of this with saran wrap, and I've made a couple impressions here and here and here and a little point there, which I think may make it more interesting. If you can see when I press down on the leaf, it won't just be completely flat, there'll be some little ripples in it. The cement will weigh it down. I am going to cut off this stem right at the top too, and we're going to move down to the edge. The most deeply shaped one is this hosta leaf. Again, we've got a real high mound, so this will be a real cupped leaf when it comes out. And I want to check and see if all the extra sand I added at the end is okay. I'm pushing down with my hands to see how that feels. And I do think most of that is supported. It's a little tricky when you have a stem here because it wants to overlap. But we'll go ahead and just put cement over it and hopefully not have that little bit of leaf showing through. It'll come out fine. Last thing you want to do before you put the cement and mix the cement is make sure that there is no sand on the outside of this leaf, because this is where the cement will go over. I have a mask on because this is a very, very fine dust, and when we poured it out I actually walked away for a little bit because there was a cloud of dust coming up. This is extremely fine, and that's why I like it a little bit better than the Portland cement and sand mix. It picks up details better and just makes a nicer product. We'll be adding the cement color to taste. I don't know, I'm just going to be dumping it in. I'm going to guess I have about 6 quarts of the vinyl concrete patch here. And we'll also be adding, around ½ cup or so of the bonding agent to make it stronger. I think the first thing I'll do is pour in a little bit of water. I don't know how much. We're just going to have to kind of guesstimate. It's like cooking without an exact recipe. So we'll mix it together, and I want it to have like a consistency of a thick cookie batter. I've been blending this, and I've been using the garden trowel to scrape around the bottom to make sure I didn't miss any of the powder on the bottom. I also noticed that there were some lumps in it, so I kind of went through it with the gloves in my hands, feeling for the lumps, and I think have those dissolved. I'm hoping this will be a good consistency. You want to be able to plop it on, but not have it be too runny that it'll go all over the place. But now I thought I'd add some of the concrete bonding agent. I'm one of these cookers that just goes to taste. I'm assuming about a half a cup. Oh, that's better. Kind of looks like Elmer's glue. Then the last thing I'll be doing is adding a little bit of the terracotta colorant, and I probably should mix this up too. And I just kind of added this to whatever color level I wanted. Some people like it a whole lot. I like it a suggestion. You can keep adding the colorant until you get to the right amount that you want. Okay, now comes the fun part. We get to play with the mud pies. I did end up adding quite a bit more colorant, maybe about a third of a cup. Now this one I think will be a little bit more interesting because it has some scooped out edges in it, which the cement will follow. The leaf sticks up a little bit higher, so you want to have a little bit more thickness with that. But basically what you do is just put this real soft kind of cookie batter on top of it and then push it out to the sides. This one will probably be a little too thick. I'll have to bring it over to the other side. But you want to push it down to about 1/4 of an inch thickness when it gets out to the edge of the leaf. And I'm using my other hand to make a nice smooth border on it. I learned from my first couple castings that if you don't do this, then you have a real rough border, and it's annoying to have to come back with and try to file that. It was a lot of time and effort. You learn from your mistakes all the time. So I'm kind of patting this out. Okay, now for the finishing part, we've got all the cement over this. Here is the hanger, and if you notice, these are bent a little bit outward so that when you do place it in the cement, this sticks up. I'm actually going to put an extra little blob of cement over that. Now, this is a really nifty touch. Most of these are reasonably smooth. We'll walk over to here. This one has a little bit of irregularities in it, but if you take an old paintbrush, a wet one, and just make strokes from the outside to the inside, it smooths all of that out, and all of a sudden this looks like it's a professional job. And I'll continue out here, and it kind of brings it all together and all to the top. It's a little bit trickier around that hook, but it'll still look fine. And you're done. The next thing that you'll be doing is to cover this all with saran wrap because you want to let it cure for 2 days. If you're letting it go outside, I would try to keep it in a shady area and maybe have the saran wrap over it and then a wet cloth over it so it doesn't harden quite so fast. But it needs to cure for 2 days. At the end of 2 days, you'll be flipping it over and hopefully peeling most of that leaf out. Now comes the exciting part. It's been 2 days, these have cured, and I upended this one, a ligularia leaf, and I found out I made it a little too thin on the edges, so this cracked off. You could try to put some concrete cement back there to repair it, or you can just use that particular one as an example to test your paints out on. This was a Virginia leaf, and it came out really nice. It's got some nice deep veins in it. And I made this a little heavier, so it's a good one. These 3 are hosta leaves, and I've left a few that I have not taken the leaf out. I'm going to peel the hosta leaf off. It's waxy. And another gardening tip you might want to know is that slugs do not like waxy hostas. So they don't eat these as much, and that's another bonus about using them. So most of the leaves come off well. The little bit of masking tape on the back didn't make any difference at all to the design. And this came out pretty good. If you've got a couple pieces you can't get out, you can always use a toothpick to help get them out. And if you'll notice around the edges, it's a little bit rough. So what I do is I just break that off. You could file it off, but it doesn't matter that much for the design. I just break off the weaker pieces. And if it goes outside the leaf rim a little bit, it's fine. Once you get it painted, it'll be beautiful. Pretty nice.